Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Hollow Harmony. Vincent Ashford stood before the bathroom mirror, knotting his tie with practiced precision. The house was unusually quiet for a Saturday morning, a silence that had once felt peaceful but now seemed loaded with tension. In 3 hours, his 12-year-old daughter Melody would be performing Chopin's revolutionary Etude at the Philadelphia Youth Symphony's annual recital. "Vincent, did you iron Melody's dress?" Lydia's voice cut through the stillness. "Done last night," he replied without turning, along with making sure her shoes were polished and sheet music was organized, like I always do. Lydia Ashford, his wife of 15 years, appeared in the doorway. With her perfectly styled blonde hair and tailored clothes, she was the picture of suburban perfection. But after nearly 2 decades together, Vincent had learned to see beyond the facade. "Why the tone?" she asked, her smile tight. "Today's Melody's big day. Exactly why I'm making sure everything's handled. Unlike the Henderson competition last month, when you forgot to bring her music folder." Lydia's eyes narrowed momentarily before she regained her composure. "Ancient history. Besides, she needs to learn to be prepared herself. She's almost a teenager, not a baby." Vincent studied his wife's reflection. There was a time when he'd found her ambitious nature inspiring. A successful pharmaceutical sales representative with connections throughout the medical community. Now he mostly saw the ruthlessness behind her drive. Downstairs, Melody sat at their baby grand piano, her fingers dancing across the keys with remarkable fluidity for someone her age. Piano had been Vincent's suggestion 3 years ago, after he'd noticed her tapping complex rhythms even as a toddler. Lydia had initially resisted. She'd wanted melody in pageants, following her own childhood path, but had changed her tune when their daughter showed prodigious talent. "How's my star performer?" Vincent asked, entering the living room. Melody looked up, her eyes, identical to his deep brown, filled with anxiety. "Dad, my hands feel shaky. What if I mess up?" Vincent knelt beside the piano bench. "Your body's just getting ready for something important. It's normal. Remember what Dr. Westlake said about your performance anxiety? The medicine will help keep everything steady." Melody nodded, reaching for the orange prescription bottle on top of the piano. Vincent watched as she swallowed the small white pill with water. "I don't see why she needs that crutch," Lydia said from the doorway. "My mother never let me take the easy way out." "It's not a crutch," Vincent replied evenly. "Dr. Westlake prescribed it for her specific condition." Melody had been diagnosed with a mild anxiety disorder last year, which manifested physically during performances. The beta blocker prescribed helped manage the physical symptoms without affecting her mental clarity. Vincent had researched extensively before agreeing to the medication. "Speaking of mother, she'll meet us at the hall," Lydia said, checking her phone. "She's bringing that new friend of hers, the surgeon." Vincent nodded, unsurprised. Beverly Thornton, his mother-in-law, had an uncanny ability to network with the medical elite of Philadelphia, a trait Lydia had inherited. The upcoming fundraiser for Beverly's charitable foundation had dominated their dinner conversations for weeks, particularly since Lydia was scheduled for a cosmetic procedure with one of the foundation's board members immediately after. As they prepared to leave, Vincent noticed Lydia lingering in the kitchen, her back to him as she appeared to be texting someone. When she noticed his presence, she quickly pocketed her phone. "Just confirming mother's seat number," she explained smoothly. Vincent simply nodded, but the familiar prickle of suspicion crawled up his spine. The same feeling he'd had 6 months ago when unusual charges appeared on their credit card. Charges Lydia had explained away as gifts for clients. The same feeling he'd had when he noticed Lydia's increasingly late nights and weekend networking events. And the same feeling he'd had 2 weeks ago when he'd seen a message preview on her phone from someone named Ray that disappeared before he could read it fully. Vincent helped Melody into the car, noting how her hands trembled despite the medication. "It's not working yet," she whispered, panic edging into her voice. "Give it time, sweetheart," he assured her, though he found it unusual. The medication typically took effect within 30 minutes. As they drove to the concert hall, Vincent couldn't shake the feeling that today would change everything, though he had no idea just how right he was. Chapter 2. Dissonant Fall. The Kimmel Center's Perelman Theater buzzed with anticipation. Parents clutched programs while children in formal attire whispered nervously backstage. Vincent checked his watch, 20 minutes until Melody's performance, and still no sign of Beverly. Your mother's cutting it close, he remarked to Lydia, who was scanning the crowd with unusual intensity. She'll be here, Lydia responded dismissively. How's Melody doing backstage? Still nervous. Said the medication isn't helping like usual. Lydia's expression remained neutral. Maybe she's building a tolerance. Vincent frowned. That's not how these medications work. Dr. Westlake specifically said. Vincent, please. Not everything is a conspiracy. She touched his arm, but her eyes continued darting around the auditorium. A tall, distinguished man with salt and pepper hair entered the theater, and Vincent noticed how Lydia's posture straightened immediately. The man spotted them and approached with confident strides. Dr. Raymond Sullivan, Lydia said with uncharacteristic warmth. What a pleasant surprise. The surgeon extended his hand. Mrs. Ashford, good to see you outside the hospital. And this must be Mr. Ashford. Vincent shook the offered hand, noting the firm grip and the lingering eye contact between the doctor and his wife. Vincent, you work with Beverly's Foundation and the cosmetic surgery department. I'll be performing Lydia's procedure next week. His smile revealed perfect teeth. Beverly invited me to attend today. We're quite excited about your daughter's performance. Before Vincent could respond, Beverly Thornton made her entrance, elegant in a designer suit that probably cost more than most parents in the room earned in a month. Vincent, Lydia, darling. She air-kissed both of them. Raymond, you found them. Wonderful. The lights flickered, signaling the audience to take their seats. As they settled in, Vincent noticed Lydia check her phone one last time before turning it off. Dr. Sullivan sat directly behind them, close enough that Vincent could smell his expensive cologne. The first three performers played competently, receiving polite applause. When the announcer called Melody's name, Vincent felt his chest swell with pride. His daughter walked onto the stage with practiced poise, her blue dress catching the spotlight as she bowed and took her seat at the grand piano. The first notes of Chopin filled the auditorium, and Vincent immediately knew something was wrong. Melody's tempo was slightly off, her usually confident keystrokes hesitant. He leaned forward, watching as she missed a note, then another. Her hands visibly trembled. Halfway through the piece, Melody faltered. Her fingers froze above the keys as she swayed slightly on the bench. She attempted to continue, but the music had become disjointed, fragmented. Vincent saw the panic in her eyes just before she slumped forward, her forehead striking the keys with a discordant crash that echoed through the stunned theater. Vincent was on his feet and rushing toward the stage before anyone else moved. The audience gasped collectively as he gathered his unconscious daughter into his arms. Her skin felt clammy and her pulse raced beneath his fingers. "Call an ambulance," he shouted, cradling Melody against his chest. Lydia appeared beside him, her face a mask of concern that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Is she breathing? What happened?" "She's breathing, but her heart's racing. This isn't stage fright. Something's wrong." Beverly pushed through the gathering crowd, Dr. Sullivan close behind. "It's probably just nerves," Beverly announced with authority. The poor dear worked herself into a state. "It's not nerves," Vincent snapped. "She's on medication specifically to prevent this." Dr. Sullivan knelt beside them, checking Melody's pulse with practiced efficiency. "Her heart rate is concerning. Has she taken any other medications today?" "Just her prescribed beta blocker," Vincent answered, but doubt crept into his mind. It should have prevented this exact situation. Paramedics arrived within minutes, quickly transferring Melody to a stretcher. Vincent insisted on riding in the ambulance while Lydia agreed to follow in their car with Beverly. As the ambulance doors closed, Vincent caught a glimpse of his wife and mother-in-law in intense conversation, their expressions more calculating than concerned. Dr. Sullivan stood nearby, his hand resting briefly on Lydia's lower back in a gesture that seemed unexpectedly intimate. In the emergency room, doctors worked efficiently, drawing blood and attaching monitors to Melody's small form. When she finally regained consciousness, her eyes found Vincent's immediately. "Dad?" she whispered, tears welling. "I couldn't feel my fingers. The music just disappeared." "It's okay, sweetheart," he assured her, though nothing felt remotely okay. "The doctors are figuring it out." An hour later, the ER physician pulled Vincent aside, his expression serious. "Mr. Ashford, we've run preliminary tests. Your daughter doesn't show any traces of the medication you mentioned in her system. Vincent stared, uncomprehending. That's impossible. I watched her take it this morning. What we're seeing is consistent with a rapid withdrawal from regular use. If she's been taking this medication daily and suddenly stopped, it could cause exactly these symptoms: anxiety, tremors, tachycardia. She didn't stop, Vincent insisted. She's taken it daily for 6 months, including this morning. The doctor's expression softened with uncomfortable understanding. Mr. Ashford, we found only trace amounts consistent with previous use, but nothing indicating today's dose. Whatever she took this morning, it wasn't her medication. Vincent felt his world tilt on its axis. That's not possible unless someone had replaced her medication. Unless someone wanted her to fail. The emergency room doors slid open, and Lydia walked in with Beverly and Dr. Sullivan in tow. Their concerned expressions seemed rehearsed, artificial, like actors arriving on cue. In that moment, Vincent knew with absolute certainty that this was no accident. Chapter 3. The Revelation. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of Melody's heart monitor. She had finally fallen asleep after hours of tests and questions, exhausted from the physical and emotional ordeal. Vincent sat beside her bed, his mind racing through the day's events with methodical precision. When the door opened, he didn't turn around. "Vincent," Lydia whispered, "you should get some rest. Mother and I can stay with her." "I'm not leaving her," he replied, his voice flat. "The doctors said she'll be fine. Just a panic attack." Vincent finally turned to face his wife. It wasn't a panic attack. Her medication was tampered with. Something flickered behind Lydia's eyes. Not surprise, but calculation. "What are you talking about?" The blood test showed no active medication in her system, just traces from previous doses. "Someone replaced her pills." He watched her carefully. "Someone in our house." "That's ridiculous," Lydia scoffed, but her hand moved to her throat, a tell she'd had since he'd known her, a gesture that appeared when she lied. Who would do such a thing? "That's what I've been asking myself for the past 3 hours. Vincent stood slowly. "Until I remembered something. Last week, you questioned why Melody needed artificial confidence. You said your mother never gave you shortcuts." Lydia's posture stiffened. "You can't possibly think I called Dr. Westlake. He confirmed the prescription was filled with 30 pills 2 weeks ago. The bottle at home should have had 16 left. I counted them while you were talking with Beverly outside. There were 16 pills, but they're not the same. You're being paranoid." The hospital lab confirmed it. Vincent continued, his voice deadly calm. "They're sugar pills. Placebos. The kind pharmaceutical representatives have access to for demonstrations." Lydia's face paled slightly before she regained composure. "This is absurd. Why would I do that to my own daughter?" "To teach her humility," Vincent quoted, watching understanding dawn in his wife's eyes. "That's what you told someone in a text message. I saw it on your phone last night when you were in the shower. I didn't understand what it meant then." Lydia's expression hardened. "You went through my phone? How dare you invade my privacy? How dare I?" Vincent's voice remained eerily calm. "Our daughter collapsed on stage because you switched her medication with sugar pills, and you're concerned about your privacy?" The hospital room door opened again, and Beverly swept in, followed closely by Dr. Sullivan. Vincent noted how they entered together, like a united front. "What's all this commotion?" Beverly demanded. "The poor child needs rest." "Ask your daughter what happened to Melody's medication," Vincent said. Beverly's eyes narrowed. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean." Lydia replaced Melody's anxiety medication with placebos before her performance. "To teach her humility." Those were her exact words. Dr. Sullivan stepped forward. "Mr. Ashford, you're clearly distraught. Perhaps you should stay out of this." Vincent cut him off. "This is about my family. Raymond is a friend," Beverly interjected smoothly, "and a medical professional. You should listen to him." "A friend?" Vincent laughed bitterly. "Is that what we're calling it?" Silence fell over the room. Beverly recovered first. "Lydia, we should let Vincent calm down. This wild accusation." "It's not wild," a small voice interrupted from the bed. Melody had awakened, her face pale, but her eyes clear. "I heard everything." "Sweetheart," Lydia began, moving toward the bed. "Stay away from me." Melody's voice trembled. "I heard Dad. You switched my medicine. You wanted me to fail. I wanted you to overcome your dependence," Lydia insisted. "To prove you don't need pills to perform. My mother taught me to succeed through willpower, not medication." You drugged your 12-year-old daughter by removing her prescription medication, Vincent said incredulously. Do you even hear yourself? Beverly stepped forward. Vincent, you're overreacting. Lydia was trying to help in her own way. Melody is developing a crutch with these pills. It was probably just nerves after all, Dr. Sullivan added with practiced authority. Children can be dramatic. Vincent stared at the three of them, his wife, his mother-in-law, and the surgeon who stood too close to Lydia to be just a colleague. The pieces were clicking into place rapidly now. The late-night texts, the weekend networking events, the surgery fund that Lydia had been building up for months. Get out, he said quietly. All of you. This is my daughter too, Lydia protested. The daughter you were willing to sacrifice for your twisted lesson? Vincent moved to stand between them and Melody's bed. Get out now, or I'll have security remove you and explain exactly why. After a tense moment, Beverly touched Lydia's arm. Come, dear. Let's give them space. Vincent will be more reasonable tomorrow. As they turned to leave, Vincent added, and Lydia, don't bother coming home tonight. Once they had gone, Vincent returned to Melody's bedside and took her hand. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I should have protected you better. Is Mom having an affair with that doctor? Melody asked, her perception startling him. Vincent sighed. I think so. But that's for me to worry about, not you. What happens now? Now you rest. And tomorrow, we start figuring out our new normal. He squeezed her hand gently. I promise you, Melody, no one will ever hurt you like this again. As his daughter drifted back to sleep, Vincent pulled out his phone and began making calls. First to a security company to change the locks at their home, then to his bank to freeze their joint accounts, and finally to his college roommate, Dominic Reeves, who had become one of Philadelphia's most ruthless divorce attorneys. By morning, Vincent had set in motion a plan that would ensure Lydia, Beverly, and Dr. Sullivan would regret their actions for the rest of their lives. The surgery fund Lydia had been building was just the beginning. Vincent intended to dismantle everything they valued, piece by careful piece. No one who harmed his daughter would escape unscathed. Chapter 4. Cold Evidence. 3 days after Melody's collapse, Vincent sat in Dominic Reeves's office, surrounded by manila folders and digital records that painted a damning portrait of his 15-year marriage. You've been thorough, Dominic observed, reviewing the evidence Vincent had gathered. Most clients come to me with suspicions. You've brought receipts, timestamps, and recorded conversations. I learned long ago that feelings don't win battles. Facts do. Vincent slid another folder across the desk. The hospital confirmed the pills were pharmaceutical-grade placebos, not available to the general public. Dominic, a barrel-chested man with a deceptively friendly face that belied his cutthroat reputation, examined the report. Combined with the text messages you recovered and Melody's testimony, this is powerful ammunition. But the affair, we need more concrete evidence there. Vincent nodded. I've hired Westlake Investigations. Preston owes me after I saved his construction company from bankruptcy 3 years ago. The family court judge will want. I know what they'll want, Vincent interrupted. And I'll deliver it within the week. You're not like most of my clients, Dominic observed. Usually there's more emotion, less calculation. Vincent's eyes hardened. I did my grieving the night Melody was in the hospital. Now I'm focused on justice. Justice or revenge? Dominic asked, raising an eyebrow. Is there a difference when it comes to protecting my child? Dominic didn't answer, instead pulling up information on his computer. You mentioned a surgery fund? Exactly how much are we talking about? $86,000, Vincent replied. Lydia's been secretly building it for months. Initially, she claimed it was for a medically necessary procedure, but I've confirmed with our insurance that they declined coverage because it's purely cosmetic, a combination of procedures she's scheduled with Sullivan next week. That's a significant sum to hide from a spouse. It was transferred from our joint savings to a private account 3 weeks ago. I've already reversed $50,000 of it back into my sole account. Dominic frowned. Without court approval, that could be problematic. The account was still in both our names. I've maintained meticulous records showing Lydia diverted jointly owned marital assets without my knowledge or consent. If questioned, I was simply protecting our marital assets from further unauthorized diversion. A reluctant smile crossed Dominic's face. You'd have made a hell of a lawyer. I make a better businessman, Vincent replied. Speaking of which, I need to protect Harmonic Solutions from Lydia's claims. Your music therapy company? Is she involved in the business? Not officially, but she'll claim she supported me during the startup phase. I need to insulate it completely. As they continued strategizing, Vincent's phone buzzed with a text from Preston Westlake. Target surveillance established. Sullivan residence and office under observation. First images incoming. Vincent excused himself and stepped into the hallway to review the photos. They showed Lydia entering Sullivan's upscale Rittenhouse Square apartment building, then another of them embracing in the lobby, their kiss leaving no doubt about the nature of their relationship. When he returned, Dominic noticed his expression. Good news. The first piece of the puzzle, Vincent replied, forwarding the images. Preston works quickly. This is a strong start, Dominic confirmed. But judges see affairs every day. If you want to truly protect Melody and your assets, we need to establish a pattern of deception and endangerment. I'm one step ahead of you. Vincent pulled out a small recording device. 2 nights ago, I met with Lydia under the pretense of discussing Melody's recovery. I recorded everything. He pressed play, and Lydia's voice filled the office. It was just a harmless lesson, Vincent. Mother did the same to me before pageants, and it made me stronger. Melody needs to learn that the world won't coddle her. Vincent's measured reply followed. By replacing her prescription medication with placebos? That's not a lesson, Lydia. It's abuse. Don't be so dramatic, Beverly's voice interjected. The child is perfectly fine. These anxiety medications are overprescribed anyway. Raymond agrees. Dr. Sullivan has a professional opinion on my daughter's medication? Vincent's recorded voice asked. A pause, then Lydia's hasty response. He's familiar with the case from my descriptions. The recording continued, revealing damning statements from both Lydia and Beverly minimizing Melody's collapse and defending their actions as necessary toughening. When it ended, Dominic whistled low. Did they know they were being recorded? Pennsylvania is a 2-party consent state, but we were in a public restaurant. Their expectation of privacy was limited, and I can argue I was documenting potential child endangerment. Vincent's expression remained impassive. Besides, it's not the only evidence. He revealed his most crucial discovery. Lydia had been systematically undermining Melody's confidence for months, telling the child's piano teacher to be unnecessarily harsh while presenting herself as the supportive parent. Emails between Lydia and the instructor confirmed this manipulation. She wanted Melody to fail, then come crying to her, Vincent explained. She needed our daughter to be dependent, insecure. It fed something in her. With this pattern established, we can pursue primary custody, Dominic confirmed. But what about Beverly and Sullivan? They're peripheral to the divorce. They're central to my daughter's well-being, Vincent corrected. Beverly encouraged and validated Lydia's behavior. And Sullivan. He paused, his expression darkening. Sullivan had access to those placebos. As a doctor, he had a duty to report child endangerment, not enable it. Vincent, Dominic said carefully, what exactly are you planning beyond the divorce? Justice, Vincent replied simply. Comprehensive justice. As he left Dominic's office, Vincent received another text from Preston. Subject B, Sullivan. Accessed medical records for Melody Ashford at 2:14 p.m. today. Violation of HIPAA confirmed. Records captured. Vincent allowed himself a small, cold smile. The pieces were falling into place faster than expected. By accessing Melody's records without authorization, Sullivan had committed a serious professional violation, one that could cost him his medical license. But that was just the beginning. Back at the hotel where he and Melody were staying, Vincent found his daughter practicing on a keyboard he'd purchased for their temporary home. The familiar Chopin piece filled the room, but this time her fingers moved confidently across the keys. That sounds perfect, he said, setting down his briefcase. Melody looked up with a small smile. Dr. Westlake adjusted my medication. It's working better now. Vincent sat beside her on the bench. How would you feel about staying with Uncle Dominic's family for a few days? His daughter Sophie has been asking to see you. Are you going somewhere? Just handling some business. He kept his tone light. Adult stuff, nothing exciting. Melody stopped playing, her expression suddenly serious. You're going after Mom, aren't you? And Grandma, and that doctor. Sometimes Vincent forgot how perceptive his daughter was. I'm making sure they can't hurt you again. Dad, I don't want you to do anything bad. Vincent took her hands. Listen to me carefully, Melody. There are consequences for actions. What your mother did was wrong, dangerously wrong. Those consequences aren't your burden to carry. But, no buts. Your job is to focus on healing and music. My job is to protect you. He squeezed her hands gently. Do you trust me? After a moment, she nodded. Good. He stood up. Now, how about pizza for dinner? Later that night, after Melody had gone to bed, Vincent opened his laptop and began the next phase of his plan. The surgery fund was just his opening move. Now it was time to dismantle the foundations of Lydia's carefully constructed world, starting with Beverly Thornton's precious charitable foundation. Chapter 5. Strategic Movements. The Thornton Medical Foundation's offices occupied the top floor of a gleaming high-rise in Center City, Philadelphia. For 2 decades, the foundation had been Beverly's pride and joy, an organization that ostensibly raised funds for medical research while conveniently providing Beverly with social status and connections throughout the city's elite medical community. Vincent had arranged this meeting carefully, ensuring Beverly wouldn't be present. As a significant donor for the past 5 years, his request to speak with the foundation's financial director hadn't raised any eyebrows. Mr. Ashford, what a pleasure, Philip Garrett greeted him, extending his hand. We don't often get to thank our donors in person. The pleasure is mine, Vincent replied smoothly. I've always appreciated the foundation's transparency. If Philip caught the slight emphasis, he didn't show it. How can I help you today? Mrs. Thornton mentioned you might be reducing your involvement. Did she? Vincent smiled. Interesting. Actually, I'm considering a significant increase in my support, but I have some specific questions about fund allocation. For the next hour, Vincent led Philip through a seemingly innocent discussion about the foundation's operations. With each question, the financial director revealed more than he intended about how donations were processed, which board members received stipends, and how research grants were awarded. Vincent recorded every word while taking careful notes. One last question, Vincent said as their meeting concluded. The upcoming Surgical Innovation Fundraiser. I understand Dr. Raymond Sullivan is a keynote speaker? Yes, a rising star in cosmetic surgery. Mrs. Thornton speaks very highly of him. I imagine she does, Vincent murmured. And the foundation is covering his speaking fee, plus accommodations at the Rittenhouse Hotel. Standard practice for our featured presenters. Vincent nodded thoughtfully. Has Dr. Sullivan received research grants from the foundation? Philip hesitated. I'd have to check the exact amounts, but yes, he's been a recipient for the past 2 years. His work on minimally invasive facial procedures has been well supported. I'm sure it has, Vincent replied, standing to leave. Thank you for your time, Philip. This has been most enlightening. Outside, Vincent texted Preston Westlake. Need complete financial audit of Thornton Foundation. Focus on Sullivan grants and board compensation. Priority. The response came quickly, already underway. Preliminary findings concerning. Meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m. Vincent's next stop was Center City Medical Group, where Dr. Westlake maintained his practice. The psychiatrist had been Melody's doctor for the past year, and Vincent trusted him implicitly. The medication substitution was deliberate and dangerous, Dr. Westlake confirmed once they were seated in his office. Beta blockers aren't psychiatric medications that work on beliefs or emotions. They physically prevent the adrenaline response. Removing them suddenly could have caused serious physical consequences, which it did. I need that in writing, Vincent said. For the custody hearing. Dr. Westlake nodded gravely. I've already prepared a medical opinion. But Vincent, there's something else you should know. He hesitated. Dr. Sullivan called me yesterday, asking about Melody's treatment history. Vincent's expression darkened. He has no right to that information. Exactly what I told him. He claimed to be consulting on her case, but when I asked for your consent forms, he backtracked. Dr. Westlake leaned forward. Vincent, this goes beyond professional curiosity. He was fishing for information that could help Lydia's case. Did he mention the foundation? He implied that my research funding could be reconsidered if I wasn't reasonable. Dr. Westlake's expression hardened. I've documented the conversation. You're a good man, Robert, Vincent said sincerely. I won't forget this. I'm not doing it for you, the doctor replied. I'm doing it for Melody. What they did was unconscionable. Armed with this new information, Vincent proceeded to his final appointment of the day, with Naomi Chun, an investigative journalist he'd met during a charity event last year. They met in a quiet cafe several blocks from her newspaper's offices. "This better be worth my time, Vincent," she said after ordering coffee. "I'm on deadline for 2 other stories." "It's worth it," Vincent assured her, sliding a USB drive across the table. Financial records from the Thornton Medical Foundation. Specifically, patterns of grant disbursements to certain physicians who later performed discounted procedures on board members. Naomi's eyebrows rose. "That's potentially quid pro quo. Self-dealing." "Potentially." Vincent smiled thinly. The records show 8 board members, including Beverly Thornton herself, receiving cosmetic procedures from grant recipients at fractions of market rates. Procedures later billed to insurance as medically necessary with altered documentation. "That's insurance fraud," Naomi said, instantly alert. "How did you get this?" "I made some donations. Asked some questions. The foundation isn't as careful as they should be." Vincent kept his expression neutral. "There's more. Dr. Raymond Sullivan received over $650,000 in grants in the past 3 years while performing procedures on both Beverly and Lydia Thornton at steep discounts. The same Sullivan scheduled to keynote their fundraiser next month? The very same. Who also happens to be having an affair with my wife." Naomi sat back. "And now we get to your motivation." "Does my motivation change the facts?" Vincent challenged. After a moment, she shook her head. "No, but I'll need to verify everything independently." "Of course." The drive contains source documents and contact information for 3 former foundation employees willing to speak on record. Vincent stood to leave. "The story runs when you've verified everything, not before. I'm not asking for a hit piece, just the truth. And if the truth hurts people you want to hurt?" Vincent met her gaze directly. "Then justice and my personal satisfaction align perfectly." That evening, Vincent met with Preston Westlake in a private room at an upscale steakhouse. The burly former Marine had transitioned from military intelligence to private investigation 15 years ago, building a reputation for thoroughness and discretion. "Sullivan's in deeper than we thought," Preston explained, spreading photographs across the table. "He's been sleeping with Lydia for at least 7 months, based on hotel records and surveillance." 7 months, Vincent repeated, remembering Lydia's sudden interest in networking events around that time. But here's where it gets interesting. Preston produced a document. Sullivan's practice is in financial trouble. 3 malpractice suits in the last year, settled quietly but expensively. The Thornton Foundation grants have been keeping him afloat. Vincent examined the financial records. "And Beverly knows this?" "Not only knows, she's leveraging it. Sullivan performs procedures at cost for her friends. She ensures the grant money keeps flowing." Preston lowered his voice. "But the real bombshell? Sullivan isn't board certified in plastic surgery. He completed a general surgery residency, but failed his plastic surgery boards twice. He's practicing under a loophole in the state regulations. So my wife was planning to let an unqualified surgeon perform extensive cosmetic procedures on her," Vincent said coldly, "using money diverted from our savings. Money that's now largely back in your control," Preston reminded him. "Which brings me to your next question. What did Lydia do when she discovered the transfer reversal?" He played an audio recording from the bug placed in Sullivan's apartment. Lydia's voice was hysterical. "He took it back, Ray. 60,000 just gone. The surgery is next week." Sullivan's response was measured. "Calm down. We'll figure something out. Beverly can advance your portion from the foundation if necessary." "That's not the point," Lydia shouted. "He knows. He's coming after us. Let him try," Sullivan replied confidently. "With Beverly's connections and my professional reputation against his word, he has nothing." Vincent smiled grimly at the recording. "He has no idea what I have." "There's one more thing," Preston said, producing a final folder. "Sullivan has been writing prescriptions for Lydia, anti-anxiety medications, sleeping pills, even low-dose opioids, for over a year. None medically necessary, none through proper channels. Prescription fraud," Vincent noted. "The medical board would be very interested." Along with the DEA, Preston agreed. "I've documented everything, but haven't moved on it yet." Vincent considered this new information carefully. "Hold that card for now. We'll play it when it creates maximum impact." As they finished their meeting, Vincent outlined the next phase of his plan, a series of strategic moves designed to isolate each of his targets before delivering the final blow. "This goes beyond a divorce case," Preston observed. You're systematically dismantling their lives. They were willing to harm my daughter for their own purposes, Vincent replied without emotion. I'm simply ensuring the punishment fits the crime. That night, as Vincent reviewed his progress, he received a text from Lydia, the first direct communication since he'd locked her out of their home. We need to talk about Melody and our future. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m. at Sullivan's office. Just you and me. Vincent studied the message, recognizing the trap for what it was. Sullivan's office would be on their territory, potentially recorded, certainly designed to provoke him into saying something damaging. I prefer neutral ground. Commonwealth Restaurant, 11 a.m. Public venue. Come alone or don't come. Her response came quickly. Fine. 11 a.m. For Melody's sake, let's be civil. Vincent didn't bother replying. Civility had ended the moment she replaced their daughter's medication with sugar pills. Now there would only be consequences. As he prepared for bed in his hotel room, Vincent checked on Melody in the adjoining room. She slept peacefully, her medication on the nightstand, the real medication, which he now personally verified before each dose. Looking at his daughter's face, Vincent felt the cold anger that had driven him for days momentarily give way to grief for the family that had been destroyed. Not by his actions, but by Lydia's betrayal. The moment passed quickly. Sentiment wouldn't protect Melody. Only justice would. And Vincent intended to deliver it with surgical precision. Chapter 6. The Confrontation. Commonwealth Restaurant occupied the ground floor of a renovated bank building, its soaring ceilings and marble columns lending an air of gravitas to business lunches and power breakfasts. Vincent arrived 20 minutes early, selecting a table with clear sightlines to all entrances and exits. He had already arranged for the restaurant's security cameras to be functioning perfectly, evidence that might prove useful later. At precisely 11 a.m., Lydia entered, her composure immaculate as always. Only someone who knew her well would notice the slight tightness around her eyes, the barely perceptible tension in her shoulders. Vincent. She greeted him with forced warmth, leaning in for a kiss he deftly avoided by standing to pull out her chair instead. Let's skip the pretense, he said once they were seated. You wanted to talk. Talk. You've frozen our accounts, she began, her voice low but intense. Change the locks. Block my access to our investment portfolio. Is this really how you want to handle things? How should I handle my wife endangering our daughter and betraying our marriage? Vincent countered calmly. With flowers and understanding? Lydia's expression hardened. One mistake doesn't erase 15 years together. Melody is fine. She collapsed on stage. Vincent interrupted. Required emergency medical intervention. Spent a night in the hospital. That's your definition of fine? Don't be dramatic. Careful, Vincent warned. Everything you say is being remembered, possibly recorded, and will absolutely be used in our divorce proceedings. The word divorce hung between them. Lydia recovered quickly, switching tactics. I made a mistake with Melody's medication. I admit that. But I'm her mother. Her voice softened, eyes glistening with tears that Vincent recognized as calculated. She needs me. What she needs is safety from people willing to harm her for their own purposes. Lydia leaned forward. Vincent, be reasonable. A divorce will devastate her. And financially, it makes no sense. The court will award me half of everything anyway, including your precious company. You seem very confident about the court's position, Vincent observed. Have you been getting legal advice? Perhaps from Beverly's connections? A flicker of uncertainty crossed Lydia's face before her mask of confidence returned. I know my rights as a wife and mother. This vindictive financial freeze-out won't help your case. Vincent sipped his water calmly. Is that what this meeting is about? Money. It's about family, Lydia insisted. About doing what's best for Melody. Interesting you should mention what's best for her. Vincent removed a document from his briefcase. I have a proposal. Full physical custody to me, generous visitation for you, contingent on supervision and compliance with mental health evaluation. You keep your personal assets, I keep mine and the business. Clean break. Lydia stared at the document, then laughed incredulously. You can't possibly think I'd agree to this. It's more generous than what a judge will grant after reviewing the evidence. What evidence? Lydia scoffed. A misunderstanding about medication? Vincent leaned forward slightly. Let's be clear. You deliberately replaced our daughter's prescription with placebos before a major performance. You've been undermining her confidence for months. I have the emails to her piano teacher. You diverted marital assets for a cosmetic procedure with your lover. Yes, I know about Sullivan. I have photographs, hotel receipts, text messages. The color drained from Lydia's face, but she recovered quickly. Circumstantial and easily explained. The prescription fraud isn't circumstantial, Vincent continued conversationally. Sullivan writing unauthorized prescriptions for you? That's a DEA matter. Is accessing Melody's medical records without authorization? HIPAA violation. The Thornton Foundation's grant disbursements in exchange for discounted procedures? That's potentially criminal. Each revelation hit like a physical blow, but Lydia maintained her composure. Barely. You're bluffing. Vincent slid his phone across the table, screen displaying photos of her entering Sullivan's apartment building on multiple dates, followed by financial records showing the suspicious grant patterns. I've been building this case since the night Melody collapsed, he explained calmly. Every day reveals more. The Foundation's financial irregularities alone could trigger an IRS investigation. Beverly wouldn't survive that scrutiny. You would destroy your daughter's grandmother? Lydia whispered, genuine shock in her voice. Beverly stood in that hospital room and dismissed Melody's collapse as probably just nerves when she knew exactly what had happened. Vincent's voice remained measured, but cold fury radiated from every word. She's as complicit as you are. Lydia's facade finally cracked. What do you want? I already told you. Full custody. Clean financial break. You sign today. And if I don't, then tomorrow morning, the medical board receives evidence of Sullivan's prescription violations. By afternoon, the IRS gets an anonymous tip about the Foundation's financial irregularities. And Naomi Chin publishes her expose in the Sunday edition. You can't do this, Lydia hissed, her composed image finally shattering. Ray has done nothing to you. Nothing. Vincent raised an eyebrow. He's sleeping with my wife, accessing my daughter's medical records illegally, and was almost certainly aware of your plan to substitute Melody's medication. The texts between you confirm it. Those texts are private. Actually, they were sent on the phone I pay for, on the family plan registered to me. Vincent's smile didn't reach his eyes. Legally obtained, fully admissible. Lydia stared at him as if seeing him for the first time. Who are you? The Vincent I married would never. The Vincent you married trusted you with his daughter's well-being, he interrupted. That Vincent died the moment Melody collapsed on that stage. This Vincent protects what matters, whatever it takes. A tense silence fell between them. Finally, Lydia whispered, Does any part of you still love me? After 15 years. Vincent considered the question carefully. I loved who I thought you were. That person never existed. Lydia's eyes hardened. You'll regret this scorched earth approach. You think you've accounted for everything, but you haven't. Try me, Vincent challenged. You've been so focused on me, Sullivan, and Mother that you've forgotten about your precious company's board meeting next week. Lydia smiled coldly. Those conservative investors you courted so carefully? How do you think they'll react when they learn about this scandal? The founder's messy divorce, accusations of medication tampering, affair allegations? Vincent had indeed considered this. Are you threatening my company now? Just pointing out consequences you seem to have overlooked. Harmonic Solutions is vulnerable. One board member's withdrawal and your expansion plans collapse. She was right, and they both knew it. The upcoming financing round was critical for his music therapy company's growth. So we're at an impasse, Lydia continued. You can destroy me, Sullivan, and Mother. I can destroy your company. Or, she paused dramatically, we can be reasonable. Vincent maintained his composure. Define reasonable. I'll sign your custody agreement, with modifications for unsupervised visitation. We divide assets equally. You leave Sullivan, Mother, and the Foundation alone. I ensure your board meeting proceeds without disruption. Vincent appeared to consider this, though his mind was already racing several steps ahead. I'll need to consult my attorney about modifications to the agreement. Of course, Lydia said, confidence returning. We both need to protect what matters most. As they concluded their meeting with a superficial truce, Vincent noticed the slight triumphant tilt to Lydia's smile. She believed she'd found his vulnerability and leveraged it successfully. What she didn't know was that Vincent had spent the past week systematically addressing that very vulnerability. The moment Melody collapsed, he had begun reshaping his company's ownership structure, securing alternate financing, and building a firewall between his personal and professional lives. Lydia's threat was real but outdated. As they parted outside the restaurant, Lydia paused. "I'll expect the revised agreement by tomorrow." "And Vincent? I truly did love you in my way." "I know," he replied. "That's what makes this tragedy." Once Lydia was gone, Vincent made 3 calls in rapid succession. To Dominic, confirming the negotiation had proceeded as expected. To Preston, instructing him to maintain surveillance but accelerate the timeline. And finally, to Naomi Chun. "The story runs Sunday," he confirmed. "But only after you have independent verification." "Already have it," Naomi replied. 3 Foundation board members turned whistleblower yesterday, scared of liability. They're throwing Beverly under the bus to save themselves. "Perfect," Vincent said, ending the call. The trap was set. All that remained was to watch his targets walk into it, believing themselves victorious until the moment everything collapsed around them. Vincent checked his watch. He had promised to take Melody to her rescheduled performance at a smaller venue that evening, a chance for redemption after the traumatic recital. That was his priority now. The rest would unfold according to plan, with or without his active management. Like a well-designed algorithm, once initiated, the sequence would complete itself. Justice, like vengeance, was simply a matter of precise calculation. Chapter 7. Counterattack. The modified custody agreement arrived by courier at Lydia's hotel room the following morning. Vincent had made the requested changes. Supervised visitation became unsupervised, financial terms adjusted to appear more equitable, while embedding subtle legal landmines throughout the document that Dominic assured him would be triggered if Lydia violated any condition. Vincent knew she wouldn't read it carefully enough to catch them. Lydia's arrogance had always been her blind spot. She'd assume her leverage had worked. At noon, as expected, Preston confirmed Lydia had taken the agreement to Sullivan's office, where Beverly had joined them. Vincent imagined the 3 of them celebrating their supposed victory, believing they'd successfully neutralized his threats. By 3 p.m., Lydia's signed copy was delivered to Dominic's office. Vincent studied her confident signature at the bottom of each page, noting how she'd missed the clause on page 17 that granted him unilateral decision-making for all of Melody's medical care, and the provision on page 23 that required psychological evaluation before any unsupervised visitation. She didn't read it thoroughly, Dominic observed. "She never does," Vincent confirmed. "Lydia schemes for what she expects to see, then assumes the rest is standard language." "What about her threat to your company?" Vincent's expression remained neutral. "Already handled." In truth, Vincent had spent the week restructuring Harmonic Solutions with a ferocity that had stunned his financial and legal teams. He'd created a fortified ownership structure, secured alternate financing through investors who owed him personal favors, and most crucially, documented how the company's music therapy techniques had helped Melody overcome her anxiety, creating a compelling narrative that transformed the potential scandal into a founder's inspiring personal mission. While Lydia believed she'd secured a stalemate, Vincent had already moved several moves ahead. At 4 p.m., as Lydia was likely still congratulating herself, Vincent set the next phase in motion with a single text to Preston: "Execute." By 6 p.m., Sullivan received formal notice from the Pennsylvania Medical Board that his practice was under investigation for prescription irregularities, with an emergency hearing scheduled for Monday morning, the day of the Foundation's major fundraiser. By 7 p.m., Beverly received notification from the Foundation's bank that accounts were temporarily frozen pending an investigation into financial irregularities reported by concerned board members. By 8 p.m., 3 board members had resigned, citing personal reasons, while privately informing Beverly they'd been contacted by both the IRS and a reporter from the Philadelphia Inquirer. At 9 p.m., Vincent received the expected furious call from Lydia. "What have you done?" she demanded, her voice shaking with rage. "We had an agreement." "We do have an agreement," Vincent replied calmly. "One you've signed and legally cannot retract. I've done nothing to violate it. Sullivan's medical license is being questioned. Mother's Foundation is under investigation." "Unfortunate coincidences," Vincent said. "Perhaps they should have been more careful in their business practices." "This was you. You promised to leave them alone if I signed." "I made no such promise," Vincent corrected. "Check the agreement." There's nothing in there about Sullivan or Beverly. You assumed, and I allowed that assumption to stand. Lydia's stunned silence confirmed she was frantically reviewing the document, realizing too late that her perceived leverage had been an illusion. You manipulative bastard, she finally whispered. I learned from the best, Vincent replied without emotion. 15 years of watching you manipulate everyone around you was an excellent education. This isn't over, Lydia hissed. You've made powerful enemies. Not powerful, Vincent corrected. Just privileged. There's a difference. Privilege can be revoked when exposed to sufficient light. After ending the call, Vincent received a series of updates from his various allies. Naomi confirmed the expose would run in Sunday's paper, with online publication Saturday night. Preston reported that Sullivan was frantically destroying documents in his office. Dominic confirmed that all legal bases were covered. Vincent had broken no laws, violated no agreements. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Until it wasn't. At 11:38 p.m., Vincent's phone rang again. This time, it was Dominic, his normally composed voice urgent. They filed an emergency motion alleging you tampered with evidence. Judge Harriman granted a temporary stay on the custody agreement. Vincent sat up straight. What evidence? They're claiming you fabricated the text messages showing Lydia admitted to switching the medication. Sullivan submitted an affidavit claiming he examined the pills himself, and they were legitimate medication, just a different generic formulation. This was an unexpected development, a desperate countermove, but potentially effective if it created doubt. The hospital lab results confirm they were placebos, Vincent pointed out. Sullivan is claiming the samples were switched after collection, possibly by you. It's thin, but Harriman has scheduled an emergency hearing for tomorrow morning. Vincent processed this quickly. They're trying to flip the narrative. Make me the manipulative one tampering with evidence rather than Lydia tampering with medication. Exactly. And Beverly called in a favor with Harriman. They've known each other for years through charity circuits. Find out everything about Harriman's connection to the Thornton Foundation, Vincent instructed. Any donations, any benefits received, any events attended. Already on it, Dominic assured him. But Vincent, you should know, Lydia's also claiming you've been emotionally abusive, controlling Melody's activities and medications to keep her dependent on you. The irony might have been amusing if it weren't so dangerous. They were attempting to project Lydia's own behaviors onto him. They're desperate, Vincent observed. When is the hearing? 9 a.m. Sullivan's office already submitted their documentation. We have until 8 a.m. to respond. I'll be there in 30 minutes, Vincent said, ending the call. As he prepared to leave, Vincent checked on Melody, sleeping peacefully in the adjoining hotel room. He'd fought too hard, come too far to let Lydia's desperate counterattack succeed. What she didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that Vincent had anticipated this possibility. Not this exact move, but some form of desperate last stand. And he'd prepared accordingly. When people felt cornered, they became predictable. And Vincent had spent 15 years studying Lydia's patterns. By morning, he would turn their counterattack into the final nail in their collective coffin. Chapter 8. Tactical Revelation. The courtroom was unusually crowded for a Saturday morning emergency hearing. Judge Harriman, a stern woman in her 60s with a reputation for no-nonsense efficiency, surveyed the assembled parties with obvious displeasure at having her weekend disrupted. Lydia sat with her hastily acquired attorney, Harold Winstead, a divorce lawyer known for aggressive tactics rather than careful preparation. Beverly sat directly behind them, her usual imperious expression strained. Sullivan was notably absent, having claimed emergency surgical obligations that couldn't be rescheduled. Vincent sat beside Dominic, outwardly calm despite having spent the night assembling their response to the desperate allegations. Melody remained at Dominic's home with his wife and daughter, protected from this latest ugliness. Let's get to it. Judge Harriman began without preamble. Mrs. Ashford has filed serious allegations regarding evidence tampering and emotionally abusive behavior. Mr. Winstead, present your case succinctly. Winstead rose, straightening his expensive tie. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Ashford fabricated text messages and tampered with medical samples to create a false narrative about my client. Dr. Raymond Sullivan has provided an affidavit confirming that the medication in question was legitimate, just a different generic formulation. Furthermore, Mr. Ashford has exhibited controlling behavior toward the minor child, restricting her contact with her mother through manipulative means. Judge Harriman turned to Dominic. Your response, Mr. Reeves? Dominic stood. Your Honor, these allegations are not only false, but represent a desperate attempt to distract from Mrs. Ashford's documented endangerment of her daughter. We have certified hospital laboratory results confirming the pills were pharmaceutical-grade placebos, not medication. As for the text messages, we have the original device from which they were extracted, with forensic certification of authenticity. Let me see both sets of evidence, the judge instructed. As the clerks distributed documents, Vincent studied Lydia's expression. She maintained her composure, but he recognized the slight tapping of her index finger against the table, a tell that emerged only when she was bluffing from a position of weakness. Judge Harriman reviewed both submissions, her frown deepening. Dr. Sullivan's affidavit directly contradicts the hospital laboratory findings. This is troubling. Your Honor, Winstead interjected, we suggest an independent analysis of any remaining medication, if Mr. Ashford hasn't destroyed it all already. Actually, Vincent said quietly to Dominic, who nodded and stood. Your Honor, we anticipated this request and have brought the original prescription bottle with the remaining pills, which have been in a sealed evidence bag since the incident. Dominic presented a clear plastic bag containing the orange prescription bottle. We welcome independent testing. Lydia's finger tapping increased slightly. Vincent noticed Beverly whispering urgently to Winstead, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. Furthermore, Dominic continued, we have additional evidence directly relevant to these allegations. He produced a USB drive. This contains security camera footage from the Ashford home on the morning of the recital. This was Vincent's ace, the home security system he'd installed 6 months earlier after a neighborhood break-in. Cameras covered every entrance and common area of the house. Footage stored securely in cloud storage even Lydia didn't know existed. Objection. Winstead sputtered. This evidence wasn't disclosed to us. Because it wasn't relevant until you accused my client of evidence tampering, Dominic replied smoothly. Now it's directly relevant to refute those allegations. Judge Harriman gestured for the USB. I'll review it immediately. The courtroom fell silent as the judge connected the drive to her computer. Vincent watched as her expression shifted from irritation to surprise, then to cold anger. After several minutes, she looked up. Mr. Winstead, Mrs. Ashford, are you familiar with the contents of this recording? Lydia's confident expression faltered. I don't know what recording you're referring to, Your Honor. The security camera footage clearly shows you entering your daughter's bathroom at 6:42 a.m. on the morning of her recital, opening her prescription bottle, emptying it into your hand, and replacing the contents with different pills from your purse. Judge Harriman's voice was glacial. It then shows you replacing the bottle exactly where it had been. The color drained from Lydia's face. Beverly grabbed Winstead's arm, whispering furiously. Your Honor, Winstead attempted, without seeing this alleged footage. It will be provided to you immediately, the judge interrupted. But I should warn you, it's unambiguous. Judge Harriman turned to Vincent. Mr. Ashford, why didn't you present this evidence initially? I didn't believe it would be necessary, Your Honor, Vincent replied honestly. The hospital lab results confirming the pills were placebos, combined with my daughter's testimony and Mrs. Ashford's text messages discussing her actions, seemed sufficient. I preferred not to subject my daughter to seeing her mother deliberately endangering her health. The judge nodded, then addressed Lydia directly. Mrs. Ashford, in light of this video evidence, do you wish to maintain your allegations against your husband? Lydia looked trapped, glancing between her attorney, her mother, and the judge. I would like to consult with my attorney before responding. A wise decision, Judge Harriman said coldly. Because making false allegations to this court carries serious consequences. She turned to Winstead. And Mr. Winstead, I expect attorneys who appear before me to verify their allegations before filing emergency motions that disrupt the court's schedule. Winstead looked distinctly uncomfortable. Your Honor, I relied on my client's representations and Dr. Sullivan's affidavit. An affidavit that appears to contain deliberate falsehoods, the judge noted. I'm referring this matter to the Bar Association's Ethics Committee and the Medical Board. Beverly stood suddenly. This is outrageous. My daughter made a parenting decision she believed was in her child's best interest. This vindictive persecution. Mrs. Thornton, Judge Harriman interrupted sharply. You are not a party to this case, and one more outburst will result in contempt charges. Sit down. After a brief whispered conference with Winstead, Lydia addressed the court. Your Honor, I withdraw the emergency motion and accept the original custody agreement. The agreement Mrs. Ashford already signed, Dominic clarified, which grants my client full physical custody with supervised visitation rights for Mrs. Ashford. So ordered, Judge Harriman declared. And given the evidence presented today, I'm adding a requirement for Mrs. Ashford to complete a psychological evaluation before any visitation begins. She fixed Lydia with a stern gaze. Deliberately replacing a child's prescribed medication with placebos demonstrates profoundly impaired judgment that concerns this court deeply. As the hearing concluded, Vincent remained seated, watching Lydia and Beverly huddle with Winstead. The attorney's body language suggested he was distancing himself from their case, likely realizing he'd been manipulated into filing false allegations. That went better than expected, Dominic murmured. They overplayed their hand, Vincent replied quietly. Desperation makes people careless. Outside the courtroom, Vincent found himself face-to-face with Lydia and Beverly. Despite the crushing defeat, Lydia maintained her composure. You planned this all along, she accused, her voice low. The security cameras, the emergency hearing, you wanted us to look foolish in front of the judge. I installed those cameras for home security, Vincent replied calmly. You created this situation yourself when you decided to tamper with Melody's medication. Beverly stepped forward. This vendetta against my daughter is unconscionable. The Foundation's board members who've turned against us? The investigation into Raymond's practice? You've orchestrated all of it. Actually, I merely directed attention to existing issues, Vincent corrected. The Foundation's financial irregularities were there long before I noticed them. Sullivan's prescription violations were his own doing. I simply ensured the right people became aware. You've destroyed everything, Lydia hissed. Are you satisfied now? Vincent studied his wife's face, still beautiful, still composed even in defeat, but now revealed as the facade it had always been. This was never about satisfaction, Lydia. It was about protection. Melody deserves better than what you did to her. She's my daughter too, Lydia insisted. You can't keep her from me forever. I don't intend to, Vincent replied honestly. When you've completed the court-ordered psychological evaluation and proven you can prioritize her well-being over your own agenda, supervised visitation will begin. What happens after that depends entirely on you. As Lydia and Beverly departed, Vincent received a text from Naomi Chun. Story goes live online in 2 hours. Print edition tomorrow. Foundation board in full meltdown mode. For more resignations this morning. Then another from Preston. Sullivan received notice of license suspension pending investigation. Emergency hearing Monday canceled due to overwhelming evidence. Justice was unfolding exactly as Vincent had calculated. The public exposure, professional consequences, and legal ramifications were moving like clockwork, a precisely engineered cascade of cause and effect. Yet as Vincent watched Lydia's retreating figure, he felt no triumph, no vindication. Only a weary certainty that he had done what was necessary to protect what mattered most. That evening, when he returned to Dominic's home to collect Melody, he found her playing piano duets with Sophie, both girls laughing as they deliberately hit wrong notes to make each other giggle. Dad, Melody exclaimed, running to hug him. Did everything go okay at court? Vincent embraced his daughter, suddenly acutely aware of how much he'd been fighting for. Everything's fine, sweetheart. The agreement is official. You'll be staying with me. And Mom? Melody asked, her expression complicated. She'll be able to visit once she's completed some requirements the judge set. Vincent chose his words carefully. It will take some time for everything to settle. Melody nodded, wiser than her years. Is Grandma Beverly still mad at you? Probably, Vincent admitted. But that's not your concern. Will I still be able to play in recitals? Some of the kids at school know what happened. They might talk. Vincent knelt to meet her eyes. Melody, you have extraordinary talent. Nothing that happened was your fault. If you want to perform again, I'll be right there supporting you. She considered this, then nodded. I think I do. The music is still inside me, even if I got scared. That's my brave girl, Vincent said, his throat tight with emotion. As they prepared to leave, Dominic pulled Vincent aside. Tomorrow's paper is going to create shockwaves. Are you prepared for the aftermath? Everything's in place, Vincent confirmed. The company is insulated, Melody's placement at the conservatory is secure, and our new residence is ready. You've thought of everything, Dominic observed. But what about yourself, Vincent? After the dust settles, what then? Vincent hadn't allowed himself to consider that question. For weeks, his entire focus had been on protection and justice, with no thought beyond the final execution of his plan. I don't know, he admitted. But Melody and I will figure it out together. As they drove to their hotel, Vincent realized the confrontation in court had unfolded more completely than he'd anticipated. The custody matter was resolved, Sullivan's medical career was effectively ended, and the Thornton Foundation would collapse under the weight of investigation. But there was still one final act to complete. One last revelation to ensure that Lydia and Beverly understood the full extent of their miscalculation. The surgery fund that had started this cascade would deliver its final message tomorrow. Chapter 9. Perfect Resolution. Sunday morning dawned clear and crisp over Philadelphia. Vincent sat at the small desk in his hotel suite, scanning the Philadelphia Inquirer's front page on his tablet. Naomi Chin's exposé was prominently featured. Medical Charity Foundation under investigation. Exclusive report reveals pattern of self-dealing and misuse of funds. The article was meticulous, detailing the Thornton Foundation's questionable grant disbursements, the reciprocal benefits received by board members, and the central role Beverly Thornton played in the arrangement. Dr. Raymond Sullivan featured prominently, identified as both a grant recipient and the physician providing discounted procedures to board members. Most damning were the quotes from former foundation employees and board members who had turned whistleblower, describing a culture of entitlement and casual disregard for nonprofit regulations. Nowhere did the article mention Vincent, Lydia, or Melody. As promised, Naomi had focused solely on the foundation's financial improprieties, creating a story that stood on its own journalistic merits without appearing connected to a personal vendetta. Vincent's phone began buzzing with notifications as the story spread online. He ignored most, but answered when Preston called. It's hitting like a tsunami, Preston reported. The foundation's offices are surrounded by reporters. 3 more board members resigned this morning, and the IRS has officially announced an investigation. And Sullivan received formal notice of license suspension pending investigation. His practice issued a statement that he's taking a leave of absence to address administrative matters. Preston chuckled. Administrative matters like potential federal charges for prescription fraud. Beverly, holed up in her penthouse. Security reported she's been on the phone nonstop since 6 a.m. And Lydia? A brief pause. Checked out of the hotel early this morning. Destination unknown, but Sullivan's apartment is under surveillance. If she goes there, we'll know. Vincent nodded, though Preston couldn't see it. Keep me posted on any significant developments. As he ended the call, Vincent noticed Melody standing in the doorway of her adjoining room, already dressed for the day. Is it all over the news? She asked quietly. Vincent minimized the article. Some of it. Nothing that mentions you or your mother directly. Melody sat on the edge of the bed. The kids at school will figure it out anyway. They always do. That's why we're moving to the new house in Bryn Mawr next week, Vincent reminded her. New neighborhood, new school, a fresh start. Will Mom know where we are? The question carried layers of complexity. She'll have a way to contact us through the court and Dominic. When she's ready for visitation, we'll arrange it properly. Melody nodded, processing this. The text from her stopped yesterday. She used to send me messages every hour. Vincent hadn't known this. What kind of messages? Mostly asking what I was doing, if I was okay, if I missed her. Melody looked down. Sometimes asking if you were saying bad things about her. Vincent controlled his reaction carefully. I never checked your phone. Perhaps I should have. It's okay. I knew she was trying to make me feel bad for staying with you. Melody's perception continually surprised him. That's why I muted her conversations. You're very wise for 12, Vincent observed. I've had to be. Her simple answer broke his heart. Vincent checked his watch. We should get breakfast before meeting Dr. Westlake at 11. As they prepared to leave, Vincent's phone rang again, a number he didn't recognize. Usually, he would ignore such calls, but something made him answer. Mr. Ashford. The voice was familiar but unexpected, Dr. Sullivan. I think we should talk. Vincent gestured for Melody to give him a moment. I have nothing to say to you, Doctor. I understand your anger, Sullivan replied, his smooth professional voice strained. But there are aspects of this situation you don't fully grasp. I grasp enough, Vincent said coldly. You supplied pharmaceutical placebos used to endanger my daughter. You engaged in an affair with my wife. You accessed my daughter's medical records without authorization. You submitted a false affidavit to the court. Each of these actions has consequences. That's what I'm calling about, Sullivan pressed. These consequences affect more than just me. Lydia is not in a good state. Vincent felt a flicker of concern despite himself. Explain. She's talking about leaving the country. Disappearing. She believes there's nothing left for her here. Sullivan's voice lowered. She mentioned Melody, said if she couldn't see her daughter again, there was no point in staying. A cold weight settled in Vincent's stomach. This could be manipulation, but the risk was too great to ignore. Where is she now? At my apartment. I can't leave her alone. She's been drinking since the court hearing yesterday. Vincent made a quick decision. Keep her there. I'll come, but not alone. After hanging up, Vincent called Dominic, briefly explaining the situation. They agreed to meet at Sullivan's building in 30 minutes. Next, he called Dr. Westlake, rescheduling Melody's appointment and arranging for her to stay with the doctor's family temporarily. Dad, what's happening? Melody asked as he hurriedly gathered his things. Vincent considered how much to share. Your mother is having a difficult time. I need to make sure she's safe. Is she going to hurt herself? Melody's directness was startling. I don't know, sweetheart, but I'm going to make sure she gets help if she needs it. Melody nodded solemnly. Even though she hurt me? Vincent knelt to eye level. Even then, what she did was wrong, but I don't want her to suffer. This was true, he realized with some surprise. Despite everything, he didn't desire Lydia's destruction, only Melody's protection and a measure of justice for the betrayal. After dropping Melody at Dr. Westlake's home, Vincent met Dominic outside Sullivan's Rittenhouse Square apartment building. Preston was already there, confirming Lydia hadn't left. This could be a trap, Dominic warned as they rode the elevator to the penthouse. Possibly, Vincent agreed. But if it's genuine, we need to handle it carefully. Sullivan himself opened the door, his usual polished appearance noticeably disheveled. Thank you for coming, he said, stepping aside to admit them. The apartment was expensively furnished, but in disarray, with papers scattered across surfaces and empty glasses littering the coffee table. Lydia sat on the sofa, staring blankly at a muted television showing news coverage of the Foundation scandal. She looked up as they entered, her expression unreadable. Come to witness the final collapse? She asked, her words slightly slurred. Congratulations, Vincent. You've won completely. Sullivan hovered anxiously. Perhaps we should speak privately first, he suggested to Vincent. Anything you have to say can be said in front of everyone, Vincent replied, maintaining a careful distance from both of them. Sullivan sighed heavily. The medical board has suspended my license pending investigation. The Foundation is finished. Beverly is facing possible criminal charges. He spread his hands helplessly. Everything has collapsed in 48 hours. Actions have consequences, Vincent said simply. We know that, Sullivan replied. But the consequences are disproportionate. Disproportionate. Vincent's voice remained calm, but took on a dangerous edge. My daughter could have suffered serious medical consequences from having her medication abruptly replaced. How is professional accountability disproportionate? Lydia looked up, her eyes red-rimmed, but suddenly focused. You took everything from us. My reputation, Ray's career, Mother's foundation. All because of one mistake. One mistake. Vincent repeated incredulously. You deliberately endangered our daughter, Lydia, then conspired to cover it up, then filed false allegations against me in court. Each step was a choice you made. Sullivan stepped forward. We're not here to argue about culpability. We're here to discuss resolution. What resolution remains? Vincent asked. The custody matter is settled. Your professional misconduct is in the hands of the appropriate authorities. The Foundation's financial improprieties are being investigated. Justice is simply taking its course. There's still the surgery fund, Lydia said quietly. Vincent turned to her. The money you diverted from our savings for your cosmetic procedures with Sullivan? I've already recovered most of it. Not all of it, Lydia challenged. $30,000 is still in my private account. I'll transfer it back immediately if you'll intervene with the medical board on Ray's behalf. So that was their angle, attempting to use the remaining money as leverage. Vincent almost smiled at the transparent desperation. Keep it, he said simply. All three of them stared at him in confusion. What? Lydia asked. Keep the money, Vincent repeated. Consider it the price of my education. Sullivan frowned. I don't understand. The $30,000 remaining in Lydia's account isn't from our joint savings, Vincent explained calmly. It's from me. Transferred directly to her account yesterday morning. Lydia's confusion deepened. That's impossible. I checked the transaction history. Because you were looking for a reversal or withdrawal, Vincent said. Not an addition. Check your account now. With trembling hands, Lydia pulled out her phone and opened her banking app. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock as she verified his claim. Why would you give me more money? She asked, genuinely bewildered. It wasn't for you, Vincent explained. It was for Melody's future therapy needs. I established a trust with you as custodian, requiring all withdrawals to be approved by a trustee, Dr. Westlake. Understanding dawned in Lydia's eyes. You knew I'd try to use the money as leverage. I anticipated you might, Vincent acknowledged. But I wanted to give you a chance to do the right thing for Melody, even now. A test, Lydia whispered, looking down at her phone. Which I just failed. Sullivan looked between them, clearly struggling to follow. I don't understand what this means. It means, Dominic interjected, that Vincent just demonstrated conclusively that Mrs. Ashford is willing to use resources intended for her daughter's well-being as bargaining chips for her own benefit. A fact that will be relevant in any future custody reconsideration. Lydia's face crumpled as the full implication hit her. You never intended to negotiate. This entire meeting was a setup to further discredit me. No, Vincent corrected. This meeting was in response to Sullivan's claim that you were in crisis. I came out of concern for your well-being, despite everything. The fact that you immediately tried to leverage money that wasn't even yours to bargain with was your decision, not mine. The fight seemed to drain out of Lydia suddenly. What happens now? Now. Vincent considered the question carefully. Now you have choices. You can continue fighting lost battles, or you can start rebuilding. The custody agreement allows for supervised visitation after psychological evaluation. The trust fund for Melody remains valid regardless of today's conversation. Your professional reputation can recover with time. And Ray? Mother. Their actions have their own consequences, Vincent said firmly. I won't intervene in legitimate investigations. Sullivan sank into a chair, resignation evident in his posture. It's over, Lydia. Vincent planned more thoroughly than we anticipated. There's one more thing you should know, Vincent added, addressing them both. Naomi Chin's article tomorrow will focus on the Foundation's financial improprieties and Sullivan's professional misconduct. It does not mention our family situation or Melody's collapse. I specifically requested that our daughter be kept out of the public narrative. Lydia looked up, genuine surprise in her eyes. Why would you do that? Because Melody deserves privacy, Vincent said simply. Her trauma isn't a weapon for me to wield, despite how you've treated her. A heavy silence fell over the room. Finally, Lydia spoke again, her voice small but clearer than before. I never meant to hurt her. I truly believed I was helping her become stronger. By sabotaging her? Vincent asked, not unkindly. By pushing her to overcome adversity, Lydia insisted, though with less conviction. It's how Mother raised me. How her mother raised her. Breaking a cycle is hard, Vincent acknowledged. But necessary when that cycle causes harm. Sullivan cleared his throat awkwardly. What happens to the practice? My patients. That depends on the medical board's findings, Dominic replied. But if you cooperate fully, disclose all prescription irregularities, and accept whatever penalties they impose, professional rehabilitation remains possible. As they prepared to leave, Lydia approached Vincent one last time. Tell Melody I love her, she said quietly. Whatever you think of me, that's always been true. Vincent nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Even now, after everything, he recognized the genuine love Lydia felt for their daughter, twisted and misdirected as it had become. Outside the building, Dominic placed a hand on Vincent's shoulder. You okay? I will be, Vincent replied honestly. We all will be, eventually. You could have destroyed them completely, Dominic observed. You had the ammunition. That was never the goal, Vincent said, looking up at the clear blue sky. Protection, not destruction. Justice, not vengeance. As they parted ways, Vincent felt the weight of the past weeks finally beginning to lift. There would be challenges ahead, helping Melody heal, establishing their new life, navigating the complex aftermath of the divorce, but the immediate threat had been neutralized. 3 weeks later, Vincent stood in the doorway of Melody's new room in their Bryn Mawr home, watching as she practiced a new piece on the baby grand piano he'd installed by the bay window. Sunlight streamed across the hardwood floors, and for the first time in months, his daughter played without tension in her shoulders. His phone buzzed with a text from Dominic. Sullivan surrendered his medical license voluntarily, avoiding criminal charges through cooperation. Foundation officially dissolved. Beverly relocating to Arizona. Another text followed immediately. Lydia completed first psychological evaluation. Therapist reports genuine remorse and commitment to treatment. Supervised visitation possible within 3 months if progress continues. Vincent set the phone aside without replying. Those matters would resolve in their own time, according to their own logic. For now, his focus remained on the most important outcome of all, his daughter, playing music in the sunlight, healing one note at a time. "That sounds beautiful," he said as she finished the piece. "Is it new?" Melody smiled, the expression reaching her eyes for the first time in too long. "I wrote it myself. It's called After the Storm." Vincent felt his throat tighten with emotion. "Perfect title." "Dad," Melody asked, suddenly serious. "Are you still angry at Mom?" Vincent considered the question carefully. "Not angry anymore. Disappointed. Sad for what might have been. But mostly focused on our future, not our past. Will you ever forgive her?" The question hung in the air between them, weighted with implications beyond a 12-year-old's understanding. Vincent had dismantled the lives of those who had harmed his daughter systematically and without mercy. Yet he had stopped short of complete destruction when it served no protective purpose. "Forgiveness isn't something I'm thinking about right now," he answered honestly. "What matters is your well-being and our path forward. The rest will sort itself out in time." Melody nodded, accepting his answer without pressing further. She returned to her music, fingers dancing across the keys with newfound confidence. Vincent watched his daughter play, understanding something he hadn't fully grasped until this moment. His retribution against Lydia, Beverly, and Sullivan had been exact and proportional, not because he had restrained himself, but because justice, properly calculated, was its own form of perfect resolution. He had protected what mattered most. Everything else was simply arithmetic. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.